Welcome to this week's episode of 0 to a Million, brought to you by Unstack. I'm your host, Rego. Today I'm joined by Albert Matheny, president of Promix Nutrition, a company that's bringing natural protein and supplements to market with no artificial anything. Albert, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Zach. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so I appreciate you coming on. Obviously, you're going to be our first merchant that we've spoken with. So we've talked to a lot of industry experts about strategies and technologies that merchants can implement to succeed. And obviously, you've been building an e-commerce business for the last close to 10 years. But take me through your journey prior to launching an e-commerce business, and then we can jump into how you've successfully scaled it from there.
Yeah. So all the way back, and I'll keep it brief, but I'd been an athlete growing up, running my whole life. That took me to University of Florida, running track and field there, and then competing with USA Triathlon. So, through that process, I certainly started to really consider my nutrition and how that played into my performance. And, something that I think is helpful in designing products is, if you can make something that works for people kind of under extreme circumstances, if that's an elite athlete or it's, tactical or whatever it might be, that's a really good kind of test on a product's effectiveness and, does it really work in the field. And the other part of it that, I evolved, as I learned more about nutrition. I studied food science, human nutrition at University of Florida, studied physiology and exercise physiology, undergrad and graduate, went on to become a registered dietitian. So, that whole process, I was really thinking about where do the macronutrients and micronutrients come from in food? How does that get into your body? How does that function once it's within your body to help you kind of perform? And through that, like being at Florida, I was around a lot of developmental stuff that Gatorade was doing. Gatorade's from Gainesville, Florida, where I grew up. So Dr. Cade, who founded Gatorade way back in the day, was a scientist there. Was always kind of someone I was like, this guy's awesome. As it happens, like those companies evolve over the years. They got acquired. They're now part of PepsiCo. So, the scientists at some point kind of step out of the room, and it becomes really business. And you can kind of see the change in ingredients and things like that over the years. So for me, it was really, let's look at the science, which I understood, and then let's keep the ingredient integrity and quality kind of the same kind of ethos, or I think about like the framework or like decision tree that you might go look at, a farmer's market, or maybe you go to Whole Foods or something like that. And you're like, all right, where does this come from? Like, is this grass fed? Like those kind of principles, combining that with the science. And so you could turn that into, supplements and products that, have the best of both worlds. They're really good for you. You know where the ingredients come from, but they also have a performance benefit.
Yeah, super interesting. So you were obviously in a good spot from an education perspective, and a good location from a kind of mission and almost an inspiration to look at with Gatorade. How did you go into product development? Was that something that you were tinkering with on your own, or did you quickly go out and try to source a partner to help you there?
Yeah, that's something I think we've always differentiated ourselves from what you see as kind of the industry norm, and kind of the 99% of other people is I kind of didn't know any better. I've benefited from a lack of mentorship, I think, for a lot of years. I'm fortunate now I've got some good guys I'm working with, but I just did everything myself. So it was sourcing every single ingredient myself, writing all the formulas, blending ingredients, packing ingredients. There's a long story behind doing that, but it was, a bootstrap Promix all the way through to today. I didn't really work with anyone. And, when I work with people now, I've moved beyond myself packaging products, and, this was not, it started in the kitchen, it was like, basically trying products on myself, making my own kind of drink mixes and things, bringing it to practice, having my teammates try it. And then, as a dietitian, I started working with some of these really high level athletes, a couple gold medalists, in the Olympics, and I was doing their nutrition. And, I really started to say, man, I should formalize this, because it was hard looking at what was available on the market, that I could really point to stuff that I would say, yeah, this is, a great product, no reservations. You should totally take this. So, that led me to set up my own certified organic handling facility. I scaled that up as much as I could, and then realized my time was, better served not packing containers. And so I worked with some different co-packers and things, but it's all toll processing where, I'm still sending in all the ingredients, all the materials. It's literally, they're just kind of putting the labor on the product. So we're still really, really high touch. I'm involved with everything. Has that limited, has that taken my time in terms of could I have paid attention to ad scaling and all that? Yeah, totally. But I really like making a really good product and knowing what's in it. And now, fortunately, we're in a chapter where we've got some really great people coming in, and that's kind of their wheelhouse. So I'm like, great, I'm going to continue to be this on-it product guy, not kind of waver from our standards and kind of keep evolving and improving upon them. And now we've got some good front-end guys.
I mean, that's so important, though. I think it's I'm no longer an athlete, but when I was working out, I was taking supplements and proteins and all this stuff. I honestly had no idea what was in them. And I think now I would be much more conscious of it. I think my wife has made me much more conscious of what I'm eating, especially since we've had a baby. We don't get, our eggs have to have 45 labels on them. I have to spend a lot more time reading the labels of the eggs, actually, when I do the grocery shopping. But I think that's so important. I love that you're staying close to the product, because to me that is a huge differentiator. Because honestly, I asked the question because my expectation was you quickly went and found someone to source it from. And the fact that you didn't, I think, is powerful. And pretty amazing that you're still continuing that way. So good for you. I think, the next logical step, the other thing that stood out to me about the brand was actually the branding and the packaging. I think it's beautiful. It's well designed. How'd you go about sourcing and kind of building the branding for the business? And was that something that you did yourself, or did we outsource that at least?
No, I've been fortunate to work with some good designers over the years. But a lot of times I'm really good at taking a lot of things 80% of the way. So I can come up with, I know what I want, and I can create kind of like a rough sketch. Figma is like a program I use a lot for just laying things out. So that was a combination of myself and Juan, who I've worked with for a couple years. And, for me, it's always been on the ingredient side, on the packaging side. Can we do something different and kind of sustainable as well? And that's come into vogue for sure. Everyone's pointing at sustainability now, but I had started doing that in 2011, and I actually learned about marketing that way because I had this was before anyone was doing biodegradable bags and stuff. I'd found this small company in Canada that could do them. I was doing them, and people were like, what is this? This was too far out there. I'm eating granola and bugs or something. So, that's when I switched to, at the time, plastic-based containers that could kind of convert that, GNC type crowd. And I was always conscious as well of I didn't want to make a product for the 1%, what's the point? The people that can pay $1 bazillion for something, they already have access to everything and all that. So can you take someone that's okay, I want to make a change. And I think a relevant, parallel is kind of like CrossFit, they kind of they were a mainstream brand that woke a lot of people up to thinking about nutrition differently or paying attention to different things. And it reached middle America and the broader America, not just coastal communities, which are, if you're in New York or LA, SF, you're kind of aware of these things. But to be able to create a brand that's still approachable. So this new look that we have is the one that I've been wanting to push forward. And I started to see okay, people are getting ready for this. And this was still a push, and it's not perfect. But I've got some stuff kind of in the pipeline, again, that I'm working on that's just kind of completely different, from a material standpoint and all that.
I love it. I mean, I think you've got some very marketable pieces, intentionally or not, right? I think you're spot on. I mean, mission driven. I noticed y'all donate some of your proceeds, disposal or compostable packaging and materials. That's amazing. Obviously, natural, amazing as well. what has been your kind of marketing success? Like, where have you found the one or two things that have been like, hey, those were real big pivotal moments in our business that took us from, 0 to 1 and really helped us scale?
Yeah. Early on, it was, Amazon was, I think too many people attribute success or scaling to like their intelligence. I certainly see that a lot, and it's a lot of right place, right time. You made the right choice on something, but I think you are probably aware of, people talk about when Facebook ads could work. We never did any of that, so I didn't benefit from that, and I missed that boat, unfortunately. But the 2015 to say 2018 on Amazon was definitely like, a growth time with lower competition. And now if you go on Amazon, it's like a bloodbath. It's like, it's crazy. And Amazon, tries their best to manage it. But you're just kind of putting out fires on Amazon most of the time now. But that was where we really went 0 to 1, was growth on Amazon. And it was, I saw a different kind of format, a niche. And again, like I mentioned, CrossFit, there was definitely that rise of the paleo, the ketos, like all those kind of trends definitely carry a lot of nutrition companies along with them. And so, if you're making a product that becomes the focus of somebody's attention, if it was, you saw like the collagen wave a year or two ago, Bulletproof, like kind of all those brands. So there was some right place, right time with that type of thing. And then, more recently, it's just been my partner in the business, Devin. He's done a great job. He's a creator and kind of a connector and just a good front end person for the brand. So he's been able to get the brand in front of the right people. And, the good part is the brand delivers. If people try it, they get it, they stick with the brand. So if you have a great product, try to find someone that knows how to tell speak your message to people. Because if you're a great product, but you don't know how to get out there, like, it's not going to go anywhere. So you have to have that combination.
Yeah, and I think, looking at your site, right, I think brands that are new, different, or don't have the brand recognition need social proof. And there's a few different ways you can get social proof. It's, client testimonials. Obviously, you've got a bunch of those that are powerful. It's endorsements or influencers through, in your case, athletes. Sometimes it's press release. Where did y'all start in kind of getting that brand recognition and that credibility built? And then what are the channels you're going after today? Obviously, I see athletes on the site and a lot of PR on the site through various publications, but would love to hear kind of your thoughts on how you guys went to market with that.
Yeah, that again was kind of organic, a little bit of like being in the right place and doing the right stuff. I've had a gym in New York that I started with my buddies, Ryan and Andy, back in 2013. And that gave me a platform where, again, it was boutique fitness had its moment from 2016 to kind of before COVID stuff. And New York was a hotspot for that. The gym was well known. We got write-ups through that. I started getting contacted because I kind of am unique in that I'm a dietitian. I'm also an exercise physiologist. I'm also a male dietitian, which the combination of those three things is like very limited. So different writers and things from different magazines would reach out to the gym or myself, and I'd always be good about kind of answering their questions. So uniquely positioned there and just, am nice to people and answer their questions, and I think give a pretty straightforward take on things and can kind of speak to it from the science side, but also, it's got to be practical. I think I'm sure you have it in your own world, is some people are like pure technicians and they're completely disjointed from what's the consumer actually want or what the reality is. So you got to kind of balance both of those. So that's kind of how that press came about, was just being a good resource.
Yeah, and if you're listening, now, go look at promixnutrition.com site and you'll see a scroll bar that literally highlights some of the biggest fitness men's publications. And that's huge. I think one thing that Albert did that everyone listening should do, and I try to do it, is, go and either follow Help a Reporter, which is actually an email you can get daily for people looking for PR. They're constantly looking for e-commerce store owners actually to talk about strategies and stuff. So you can actually get your name and brand published in some large publications through that. And then also Twitter. Reporters are constantly on Twitter asking for people to feature or people to answer questions. Great places to find some potential PR and then get some great logos on your site, which Albert's done very well through Promix. I think the other piece, Albert, has been partnering with athletes. Influencer, we talked about prior to jumping on this, is something that I've heard on every conversation I've had with merchants, and seems to be a channel that's working well. And I'm actually starting to build out an influencer campaign for Unstack. Where have you sourced athletes from? Obviously, you've got a great product. They're probably using it, or they might have found you organically. But has there been a strategy built out around partnering with these athletes?
Yeah, organically through, again, having a gym, being in New York. My partner Devin and I became friends, and he's got an amazing company that he's built out. I highly recommend it for anyone to kind of reach out to. It's called Creator Collective. So he heads that up, and it's basically a way that brands can reach in an authentic way creators in the space, if whatever their niche is. But being from the health and fitness world, we obviously have really good connections there. So Devin's really guided that process, and he's got a unique understanding of what really resonates with people. And I see, again, in New York, in the fitness scene, you see a ton of brands trying to reach people. But if you're going through a PR agency or anything like that, it's really impersonal. You need to have a relationship with people if they're going to really believe in your brand. You have to have a product that they believe in. If you're kind of the next derivative men's skincare brand or something, it's not going to really hit in the same way. So Devin, Creator Collective, and then we've started utilizing Captivate, which is a good platform for kind of tracking. And, as I mentioned before, some of the front end guys that I've brought into the business really know how to connect in, what's going on in Klaviyo with what we're doing on social, with, what our emails are, and just quantifying all that kind of data into one piece so we can understand what's working. That's been really helpful.
No, that's huge. And we a few episodes back had Andrew, the CEO of Klaviyo, on, and he talked a lot about data. And I think it's going to become, own data is going to become more and more important, especially, and you might not have this problem because you mentioned you didn't take on the Facebook ads campaigns early on, but a lot of brands have relied on Facebook for years. And iOS 14 changes and soon iOS 15 changes are going to mess with all the data tracking that you have with a mobile phone. So really important that you're building these channels, and more importantly, building the tracking internally to understand what are the leading indicators of success, because you're going to lose sometimes the success metric or some of the leading indicators as well. So really important to get that organized. I guess if I had to ask you, what are you, 5-6 months down the line really excited about from a marketing perspective that you all are either planning for or building out in the next few months?
Yeah. We're excited about just taking, and that's what you just spoke to, is kind of these systems and having the data, because I think you can have, I know you can have success on a small scale. You can say, all right, this person created well, converted well, and this worked or that worked. But unless you have the data, you can't scale it, because you can't say, all right, I know that this type of content is working for our audience. Let's do more of that. We find that, basketball players are really a good fit for us, or that's a differentiated kind of view on the space. If you don't have the data that tells you that, you're just you can't track anything. You don't know where you're losing people. Maybe it's not, the person isn't converting. It's, you didn't have the right landing page on the website, or where's your email flow that speaks to the person in the same way. So that's not my wheelhouse. But again, Devin's done a good job of kind of using a platform like Captivate, and building out that kind of list. So there's a way you can manage all the people. And then we have some good people on the side of, once you reach those people, how are you taking them all the way through to hopefully converting? Because I think, what I've done in the past is maybe you have a great kind of front end, or not to get too in that funnel world, but like you have people that make a good initial contact, but like how do they finish the journey? And you kind of just lose people along the way organically. That's just what happens. But you need to address kind of all those things, and anything that you want to scale, you have to know, did it work or did it not? And it can't just all be a feel basis.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point. I mean, I think there's a funnel right through your site, and then post, purchase even, or post newsletter registration, which are, the most important, longer term. How focused have you all been on repeat visitors? Obviously, it's a bit of a high ticket item. I think if you look at it in comparison to the, the massive thing I used to buy at GNC, which probably is not good for me. But what is the flow that you all are doing on trying to get people back, buying multiple products? Obviously, you've got a bunch of different formulas. Obviously, you've started to get into, it looks like chocolates, bars, all sorts of great stuff in addition to the whey proteins. What have y'all been focused on from kind of upselling the existing customer base and continuing to engage?
Yeah, I think, education around things is really helpful. I think a lot of people understand some of the key products. They understand the use case for them. Like, I try to keep it simple from the perspective of, protein. If as a dietitian, if I could recommend one thing, and this is not just for men or women trying to add muscle or, get big in the gym. And like the thing I always say, which you may or may not have heard, if I think people worry about getting bulky, and it's like, if it was really easy to get bulky, there'd be a lot more bulky guys in the gym, because most of the guys in there are trying to get big, and it's obviously not that easy. So you don't have to worry about that.
If it was, I'd be a lot bigger.
Yeah, right. So, but nutritionally, protein is something that I think across the board I see over and over again people lack. So as far as talking to, maybe they come in and look at a protein, and then it's just about educating them on the benefits of other products that might help them if they're working out or whatever it might be, or just, again, like the mission for me was in part, if someone's having, it doesn't have to be purely just workouts. We have a pre-workout that's awesome. I've formulated it. It's safe. It's, a clean product. And if somebody can take a pre-workout instead of having a Monster Energy, like, it's a great alternative. You're not getting synthetic flavors or sugars or anything like that. So you just have a much cleaner kind of product. So that's part of it, is talking to people, showing them what's there, making sure, something we've evolved the site and continue to do is like simplify it. Like, it's very easy to have kind of just SKU creep, where you just think that you're going to do more sales if you create more products. But it's really got I think simplification of things has been really helpful.
So you mentioned content. One thing that I did as soon as I got to your site, obviously I looked at products, I looked at athletes, scrolled down and found my way to your blog. And I think you've got some interesting pieces of content there. Not something I've seen a lot of merchants focusing on. Obviously, there's an education aspect to your product. How early did you get into content, and is that still a focus for you kind of moving forward?
Yeah. I'll speak to it from my own personal experience, which is I'm definitely not a content expert. But I have a belief that I think a lot of like blogs and long form content, unless you're a really big brand, I don't think there's a whole lot of value in it. I mean, I think anymore at least, there's sites, that I contribute to for, diet, nutrition and diet advice, things like Live Strong and all that. Like, those are content machines. You're not going to compete with them. And so you have to be pretty niche. Like, I see brands trying to write, what's the best protein to use for working out? It's like, you don't want to play that game. Like, you're not built for that. So, that was, honestly, we had a SEO company a couple years ago that was very much, let's do the blog, let's press that stuff. I've never seen a big lift from it. We got away from that. What I have seen a lift from, again, is Devin's work, through social media. I think and it varies based on who, your customer is. Like, we have, that younger to, mid-20s to late 30s kind of customer. And they're obviously on social media. And I think the farthest point away from a blog type content would be TikTok. And I would certainly say TikTok converts a lot better than people reading blogs. So I think that's changed as the kind of content space has matured. So yeah, that's my take on that is like, I think you'd be better served focusing on the kind of short form content, and people don't read as much, Can you give them a video? Can you, do something that's more engaging?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the market, and this is something we're talking to, with a lot of our beta users, is sending a TikTok user to a landing page that takes more than a second and a half to load. Like, they literally only watch things in a second and a half increments. So like, you got to engage and convert within a minute total.
Yeah.
So it's, that's where I think there's an interesting kind of change in the velocity of e-commerce, which has always been like buy fast, ship fast, deliver. Like, now it is from the second they hear your brand name to conversion needs to be as fast as possible. I think it's going to be pivotal for Shopify stores and merchants to really focus on speed, not only with their content creation, but with the execution on the back end as well and how they present the products.
Yeah, I mean, you probably have seen, the brands with the shopping feature now on Instagram. Like, it's 3 taps maybe, and you're done, and it's right after one another. So it's pretty quick.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's going to be huge. I think the one thing that brands have to focus on, and I've worked in PPC and I've worked in Facebook marketing for a long time with brands in all industries, is that average order value is going to go down. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you need your cost of acquisition to go down in line with it, or you need to have a very sound email SMS strategy that comes in post transaction that is adding on 2 or 3 things to their order pretty quickly. Because if not, cost per clicks on those are going to go up just like everything else has. And next thing you know, you're going to be paying $20 for a $20 sale. You're losing money. Hopefully you upsell and retain. But I think that'll be an interesting shift for merchants to keep an eye on. And a big part of it is going to be understanding your analytics in email and SMS before you even turn on that campaign, because you've got to know what's that next thing I'm saying to this person that's going to get them to buy something else from me.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point about just the cost. Like, a lot of brands maybe don't fit that formula. Like, there's a formula that you can play that game, and then there's one that social, I think, is important across any type of brand and any type of product, but your purpose on there may not actually be conversion. It may just be awareness, and it may be they need to dive deeper and go to your site, and then you're in a whole different experience versus probably that lower price point product that's a kind of impulse buy. Yeah,
totally. Albert, thank you so much for joining me. Where can everyone find you if they're interested in connecting?
Yeah, my website, promixnutrition.com. I answer emails there. So yeah, if you email Albert at Promix Nutrition, or if you ask a question that our support team can't handle through the website, it goes directly to me. So awesome. Yeah, thank you.
All right. PromixNutrition.com, Albert Matheny, president and founder. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you coming on.